Welcome to Bible Study. This is the Bible study we are preparing for February 9th, 2025 at St. Michael's Lutheran Church. And we have been looking at the Proverbs of Solomon. And to be honest with you, so far we have really only been working in what I would call the introduction to this. The first 9 chapters of this book are really preparing you to be ready to hear the part that comes next. And this is the kind of odd thing about Proverbs and about the very nature of a book like Proverbs is that it is really easy for us to get sort of lost in the weeds here, to get so focused on the nitty-gritty and the real benefit of this or that proverb that we lose sight of the context, the big picture of what these proverbs are and why we have them and why this is even in our Bible, because so much of this material is common to cultures around the world. Most of these things are not actually unique to Judaism or Christianity. You can find them in Confucianism, or you can find them in the wisdom literature of Hinduism, or just about any body of literature that seeks to give advice. I mean, you'll find a lot of this stuff paralleled in pop psychology and in even in TikTok videos and things like that today. But what's really important for this is the context, how I, as a reader or hearer of this proverb, how I'm hearing that. Why is this person telling me this? Why am I listening to it? And assuming I obey the proverbial wisdom, if I listen to the wisdom, why do I listen to it? What do I imagine is going on here? And it is this section of Proverbs that we're in right now, in chapters 8 and 9, that are really designed to frame all of what follows for the rest of this book. So we really want to pay attention pretty closely right here. We started last week in chapter 8, and just to kind of take a little running start at this, Solomon has been saying, listen to wisdom. Don't be foolish. Don't listen to folly. Listen to wisdom. And he has given us a couple of kind of really blunt and obvious examples. Initially, it was that a man who is deceptive and who is using manipulative and lying kinds of business practices, that's going to come back and bite him. But then he went into this entire thing about sexual fidelity and how infidelity, how going and having an affair on yourself, that comes back and has terrible fruit in a person's lives. It's bitter. In the ancient world, he even talks about cruel men are going to come and take your things. Yeah, that's alimony. That's child support payments. That's the government garnishing your wages. They're going to be merciless and cruel, and they're going to take all your things. And he says, nobody wins when you do that. The seductress may seem like such a good idea in the moment, but if you take that big picture, it is so disastrous for the person. That is so obvious. There is not a culture that does not say something along those lines. And yet, we know, and you know, that almost no one in our culture today can say that they have not been touched by infidelity, by betrayal, by the effects of that. If not in their own lives, certainly in the lives of the people whom they love. And I'm sure that was also true in first millennium BC Jerusalem. the very audience for which this is intended. Now, these were probably the noble young men of that society, and I think Solomon knows them, and he knows his own history, and he is giving them advice, but he knows what's going to get their attention. And I think that's a little bit of why he opted for the infidelity question. They're young men. This is foremost on their minds at this moment. But he keeps hitting that infidelity question, the adultery question, and then he comes and talks about other things. And he says, we're not just talking about the domestic, emotional, relational life you have with your spouse, but this is now applied to all of your life. Here in chapters 8 and 9, he gives us a really important picture, and he starts and what he does here is he gives us that context. Who is telling you this? Why are they telling you this? Who are you to be listening to this? Why would you obey this wisdom? Why would you heed it, listen to it, and put it into practice in your life? The reality is, you don't do it just because it's a good idea. If it was a good idea, and if that actually was the reason people did it, more people would do it. But what we see in wisdom literature and what we see in the therapeutic literature of our own day is that, in fact, people are not wise. Now, Solomon is going to say, don't go there. Don't go into that folly. And he's going to have really sharp words about it. He's going to warn you against that. All of those warnings still obtain. You know, here at the end of chapter 9, he says, woman folly is loud, she is seductive, and she knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house, she takes a seat on the highest places of the town, she's out in the street, she's in the positions of government. She calls to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way, the people who are doing the right thing. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here, and to him who lacks sense, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But that poor fool who listens to her, he does not know that the dead are in her house, and that her guests are all in the depths of Sheol. So the warning obtains. But the real question is, why not? Why yes? And this is really, for me, the interesting part about the book of Proverbs is, why should we do anything good? If you remember at the beginning of this study of the Proverbs, we went all the way back. We didn't go all the way back to Proverbs. We went back to the Apostle Paul. And we looked at that chapter 12 in Romans, in which he was really giving the life advice for that new creation of that new community of people called the Christian church. And he exhorted them to lead lives of gentleness and humility and patience, kindness to their enemies and friends alike. It was a very good world that he imagined us to live in. It was a good society. But he says, do it by the renewal of your mind. That there is something that needs to happen to us because God needs to do it. That we need the yes to wisdom to be given to us. Because it doesn't live naturally here. This is one of the things that our broken, sinful, corrupt nature has done to us is, well, in terms of leading this kind of life, it's just made us kind of stupid. It's made us foolish. And that wisdom is not going to be simply us standing in some kind of a neutral place and seeing, okay, here's the path of wisdom, here's the path of folly. I think I'll choose wisdom. There's no neutral place to stand on. You are either on the path of folly or wisdom. And the truth is, sin has placed us all on that path of folly. Does not wisdom call? Does not understanding raise her voice on the heights beside the way? And at the crossroads she takes her stand. Beside the gates in the front of the town, at the entrance of the portal, she cries out. Notice how that's paralleled with what folly is doing. To you, O men, I call, and my cry is to the children of man. O simple ones, learn prudence. O fools, learn sense. Hear, for I will speak noble things, and from my lips will come what is right. All the reasons are there to listen to wisdom. My mouth will utter truth. Wickedness is an abomination to them, is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are righteous, though there is nothing twisted or crooked in them. They are all straight to him who understands, and right to those who find knowledge. Take my instruction instead of silver, knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than jewels, and all that you may desire cannot compare with her. The logic is there. The rationale is there. The problem is we're not logical and we're not rational people. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and I find knowledge and discretion. The fear of the Lord is the hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech I hate. I have counseled sound wisdom. I have insight. I have strength. Kings reign by me. Nobles, all who govern justly. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. Riches and honor are with me, and enduring wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, even fine gold. So he's just piling on the reasons why you want to be wise. Powerful people reign in wisdom. But it's here at verse 22 that now we get that contextual piece. The fact of it is, as we've come to that point, just to review that, wisdom and folly, why would anybody ever be foolish? And yet we look around and we even look here and we see that so often we are foolish and humans in general are foolish. Why is that? In verse 22, we have wisdom talking about its relationship to God. How wisdom was there at the beginning, how wisdom was there at the creation, that he was standing at God's side when he drew that circle on the deep and circumscribed out the universe itself. When light was called forth, when all of creation was made, wisdom was there. Now, of course, for the Christian who's reading this, those words, this passage in chapter 8, verse 22 and following, sounds so very familiar because we go to John chapter 1 and it says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. That Greek idea of logos is very similar to wisdom. And in fact, that logos is almost like rationality. In chapter 9, we're going to get a little bit of the why we do this. Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn her 7 pillars. She has slaughtered her beasts. She has mixed her wine. She has set her table. She's thrown a party. She has sent out her young women to call from the highest places in town whoever is simple. This isn't for people who have already found wisdom. It is for the people who acknowledge the fact that they're fools, that they're simple. To him who lacks sense, she says, "Come, eat of my bread, and drink of the wine I have mixed. Leave your simple ways and live, and walk in the way of insight." Now you get this image of, well, how are you going to hear that invitation? How are you going to hear that when wisdom has sent out her women into your community and she has made that call to you? How will you hear it? If you correct a scoffer, you get abuse. If you reprove a wicked man, it incurs injury. Give instruction. Do not reprove a scoffer, he says. He'll hate you for it. Rather, reprove a wise man, and he will love you. Something has to change here. Give instructions to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. That passage, which, by the way, is sprinkled throughout so much of the Bible, it shows up in a lot of different places. But this passage right here, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight, is the context. Because wisdom, outside of that relationship with God, in which, as we've heard earlier, He is creator, I am created, in which He is the giver of wisdom, the one who bestows it upon us. Wisdom outside of that relationship with God is not really wise. It is this wisdom, it is this relationship, this fear of the Lord, this acknowledgement of who He is and who I am, and the vast difference and differential between us. And yet also the fact that He has caused this feast to be made, who has given us this access to His wisdom. That is what then makes all the rest of these proverbs that Solomon is going to dispense to us. That's what makes this different. Because now what I have is the wisdom of a loving God who has made the feast for me. You can't but imagine what a Christian is going to say about that. I'm standing in church. This is where we gather on a Sunday in, Sunday out basis to receive the benefits of the feast. I'm standing here in front of the pulpit. We're back to the green this week because it's the Sundays after the Epiphany. And there's a little ship behind me, a little boat. It is an image for the church of the people of God. And of course, at the top of that mast, where the sail blows, the Spirit, is the cross. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The knowledge of, to know the Holy One, is insight. As Paul said in Romans, by the renewal of your mind, let your whole lives be a righteous sacrifice made to God. Look forward to talking more with you about this on Sunday. If you have any questions, give me a call. God bless you all.